Hello and welcome to our webinar today. We've got a couple of people already on. We'll get started here at the top of the hour. I'm Nicole Brinson with LBMC Technology Solutions, and I'll be your MC today. We'll be talking about managing multiple entities and healthcare facilities for finance pros. So we'll get started here just in a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome everybody to today's webinar hosted by LBMC Technology Solutions and our partners at Sage. We're talking about managing multiple healthcare facilities for finance pros. Get started here in just a few minutes, maybe about 30 seconds. Give some people an opportunity to join. While we're waiting, go ahead and drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We're here in Nashville, Tennessee. Love to hear where else anybody else is joining from.
And thankfully, you're probably not going to hear Bryan and I sing today. So if you were looking for some Nashville sounds today, probably not going to get them from us too.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, I was a little worried there for a second, but that would be the end of the session and it would end on a very sour note, so to speak. So, yeah.
Yes, our virtual karaoke will be next session.
Right.
So
yeah.
we welcome you to come back and put your song requests down there in the chat too. All right. All right, we're about 1 minute after the hour here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're looking forward to having some great content to share with you. I'll go over just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is joining on mute, so to reduce any background noise. But if you have any technical issues, please just put them in the chat or send us a note in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to take a look at that for you. If you are joining to earn CPE credit today, please make sure that you answer all 4 poll questions that are throughout the session today, as that'll be your measurement for CPE. After the session, if you qualify, you'll get an email that'll include your CPE certificate. Please allow up to 2 weeks for that to be processed. If 2 weeks comes and goes and you don't get your certificate, please reach out and we'll be able to look into that for you. So joining us today, we've got 2 wonderful speakers who will be presenting. I did just cover all of this content, so let me go to the next one. Today's speaker, Bryan Wilton, is going to be joining us. Bryan's the president of LBMC Technology Solutions, and he provides leadership and strategic direction to both our sales and our ERP practices. Bryan's been a speaker for the past 25 years, known for speaking with Microsoft Corporation, the Kansas Society of CPAs, the Texas Society of CPAs, and the Michigan Association of CPAs. So without further ado, Bryan, I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, and welcome everyone, wherever you're coming from this lovely day. To get us started here, I wanted to touch just for a couple of minutes on some of the things that LBMC is responsible to help our clients with. This slide has pretty much the main categories of those things that we do every day. So, of course, we're a traditional Microsoft partner, and we work a lot with your servers, your desktop computers, setting up firewalls, hosting, if you still have on-premises applications, which a lot of people still do. And the big thing right now that we do lots and lots of work around is security, and that's mostly monitoring and managing ransomware prevention and just overall security monitoring for your systems. Of course, there's automation and workflow. That's a really big topic right now. Part of that is artificial intelligence and AI, as we call it. That's playing a huge part of automation today, especially in the finance office. And, if you're a surgery center or you're involved in that type of work, robotics and automation and AI has made its way really into operating rooms all over the world for many, many, many years now. But workflow, making things run smoother and doing things with automation instead of email and telephone calls or instant messaging. That was all good when it came out, but workflow and automation that's connected to it really is the way that people are moving today. And so we do lots and lots of work around that. Of course, the ERP portion there, that's the bulk of our business, where we help people find and implement and learn and then support a new accounting solution. And that's what we're going to talk about mostly today, is that accounting or ERP kind of back office system that we'll be featuring during the presentation. And of course, along with ERP, there's always integration work that needs to be done, and sometimes some customization if something doesn't work exactly the way you like it to in the software. Many times we can kind of twist or bend the software a little bit to better fit your process if it's required. But on the integration side, nearly all of our clients have some sort of external data being brought into their ERP solution. And today we're talking about Sage Intacct, and that rule is predominant there as well. I think probably the EMR connectivity is really the common one with the healthcare business. So whether that be Epic in the physician world or Dentrix in the dental world, we've integrated with virtually anything out there. And in fact, I think 2/3 of all customers, all Intacct customers, not just ours, have at least 2 integrations, and some have many more. And so it's pretty common today, and nothing really to be afraid of is connectivity. And sometimes it can be data coming out of the accounting system to feed something else that's equally as common. But we have about 130 people that get up every day to really focus on taking great care of our clients and the needs that those folks have. So if you'll flip one slide over, Nicole, I think I'll get close to wrapping my portion up here. But so why Sage Intacct? When we talk about the options out there, there's a lot of them, some better than others. But we, about 14 years ago, decided that Sage Intacct really was kind of the go-to cloud solution. And so the common things that we've heard our clients from doing this for that long, our healthcare clients really have reported back to us that there's kind of 4 pillars that really seem to come up each time that we ask our clients, why really did you pick the Sage Intacct product for your healthcare operation? Well, we hear constantly it's very easy to use, and who doesn't love easy? So that's kind of a, we don't think about that every day ourselves, but easy to use, sure, why not? We hear that it's very quick to learn and to even master the software, so people don't have to spend weeks and weeks and weeks that turn into months learning and taking a bunch of notes and screenshots, and none of that stuff really is the case with Sage Intacct. People, they use it a few times, they get it, it's logical, and they pick up on it very, very fast, and people feel like they master it in a very short amount of time. And then of course it is cloud-based, and so during the pandemic years, with very little, sometimes no notice, a lot of folks found themselves working from their kitchen table and not at their desk. And so an ERP or accounting solution that's cloud-based, well, that doesn't matter, right? So you grab your laptop from the office, or if you have a home computer, as long as you have internet, you hit the website, you log in, everything is there, just like it would be if you were at your desk or a hotel room or on an airplane connected to Wi-Fi. So cloud is a big thing. Not many people wanting to buy accounting solutions that run on a server down the hall anymore. And so cloud-based is usually on the top or very close to the top of everyone's list. And then I think finally is the security piece. And so in the healthcare world, security is almost as big as patient care. It's when it comes to the back office, it's the number one thing. And so there just cannot be any exceptions to a good, rock solid, secure solution. And of course, you have that in your EMR system. you expect that and need that in your accounting and back office systems as well. And so, and Sage really is the only cloud ERP solution provider that will actually sign a business associates agreement. So we're a BAA, you might have heard that before. And so we don't have any other products out there that really will go to that depth to say that they are that confident in the solution that that they'll put their name on those agreements. And so with that, of course, it's HIPAA compliant. And so that's another big thing. If you're looking at accounting systems that are not, you probably need to check those off the list. You know, sometimes people feel like, well, I don't really need HIPAA compliancy in my accounting system because that stuff's all the patient information is in my EMR solution. That's generally true until maybe you write a refund check out of the accounting package or something, and then you've exposed yourself to that HIPAA requirement. So it's always best to go into these saying, hey, everything I have deployed here, I want to be HIPAA compliant, and that way you don't ever have to worry or have any surprises. So I think lastly, kind of on this slide is maybe more about LBMC and kind of how we've helped a number of people in the healthcare space. You'll see just a few names on here. Some of those you may or may not recognize depending on where you live and work. But getting well into the 40% of our business is healthcare related in one form or another. And so we've been in this space a long, long time. It is a place that we live and breathe every day and all that we do. But, you know, when we talk to our healthcare clients that have deployed Sage Intacct, for example, most all of them report many hours a week that they've been able to save in their processes. And so, you know, we all have clients and we ourselves seems like we're always being asked to do more with less time or less resources. And I know sometimes doctors can be demanding from time to time in those things they require. And, you know, they got to have a certain report or by facility or, you know, by service procedure type or surgery center type thing. And they need it by noon today type thing. And so, you know, that used to be a scramble in the past, but with a solution like Intacct, you know, that can be done with a couple of pushes of buttons and you know, and without Excel. And so we always hear that, you know, just people are looking to do more with less in the way of resources. And, you know, whether that's the finance team or the providers, it's a constant struggle. But we have a cancer center down in Texas, and during the pandemic and the years since, they've had a number of people that just retired and decided that, you know, working from home wasn't their thing, and so they just kind of called it quits. Well, the cancer center was able to continue on without replacing those people, and so they were able to absorb that work with other folks they had because of the efficiencies of their ERP solution. And so, you know, that's a big testament of a piece of software can pay for itself in very short order when you have just kind of that natural attrition that happens in the business world. And people love the fact that they can standardize processes across all locations and practice providers, that everybody's doing the same thing the same way. And, you know, sometimes doctors, it's kind of hard to kind of corral them into doing what they need to do or what you want them to do. And so a good rock solid system like the Intacct platform really kind of lends itself to doing things like that. And then I guess lastly is there's a lot of roll-ups going on in the healthcare space. I know, you know, we've worked with podiatrists that have rolled up hundreds of clinics over a couple of years, and there's no way they could have done that without the Intacct system being their backbone, because it would just take too long to deploy new ERP or accounting software in every location as they bring these clinics on. And so lots and lots of that happening, and you know, that requires, in the old days, a lot of data manipulation, a lot of Excel and things like that. And so you know, we're able to get rid of all that and really just focus on best practices. And so most of our healthcare clients have gone through some type of roll up on one side or the other. And so we hear that a lot now, especially. And so with that, I think, Nicole, if you want to move us forward there. I have the privilege today to introduce our keynote speaker, and that is Linda Pinion. So Linda is one of the best in the business, and she spent a couple of decades, 2.5 decades, I guess, in helping people understand how technology, specifically these accounting systems, accounting is complicated, and so accounting systems can be complicated. Linda's done a wonderful job for 25 years helping people figure out the right solution for their organization, and the right solution meaning that it makes the organization better. If you're just going to swap out an old system for a new system and keep doing everything how you've been doing it, oh, you could probably save your money and just not do that. But Linda's an expert at helping end users like you folks and partners like us learn those efficiencies, and really has her finger on the healthcare business, the pulse of that business, and knows kind of what the hot buttons are in the healthcare space. And so she's been with Sage over a dozen years, and will be doing the bulk of our presentation and showing the product. And so we do all of this ourselves, but most of our people are busy out helping our healthcare clients. And so we partner with Sage, and are fortunate enough to have Linda with us today. So Linda, with that, welcome, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Bryan, and thank you, Nicole, for all the background work that both of you have done to make this happen today. I have been working with LBMC for, well, really since they became partners. And as Bryan said, they have really grown their practice, and it's been a delight to work with them because they are a very talented group and very customer oriented. So when you're looking for someone to partner with, LBMC is a great choice. And thank you, Bryan, for the great introduction. That was perfect. All right, so let's talk about healthcare. What's important in healthcare? And one of the things that I always like to start out with is, what do we hear? So I'm listening to prospects and customers. I host all of the customer meetups for Sage. So I get a lot of feedback from customers on what's important and where they want to go and how they want to view their financial information. And there's really 3 pillars of healthcare that I want to target today. The first one is visibility. And when you think about healthcare, let's just kind of level set here. First of all, there's lots of different flavors of healthcare. So some of you, as Bryan said, may be coming from dental offices or physician clinics. Some of you may be coming from even senior living, where healthcare is a big part of that. When you think about what's important in these types of organizations, it's always about access to information. It's not about, do we have the data? Because usually you have the data, you just can't corral it and get it into a format where you can do something with it, where you can look at it and make business decisions. So visibility is that first pillar. For us, it's all about reporting, it's about dashboards, it's about accessing that information and feeling very comfortable that that information is accurate and that you can trust it, because trusting the data is very, very important. The second pillar is around cost. And I would tell you that, of course, every industry is interested in cost. However, when you think about cost management here, you're talking about costs that are maybe coming from supplies and materials, the cost of your service. So it could be some of your labor costs that you're really focused on. And of course, controlling that cost means that you need consistency in your processes, and you need to have perhaps approvals along the way to make sure that what you're buying and what you're procuring is an approved cost, and that perhaps it's approved based on a budget. So identifying that cost management process, how are we going to do that? Executing on that, and then taking it back to that visibility. So is it important for you to know that clinic number 1 is spending a whole lot more money on supplies than what clinic number 2 is? And if that's the case, the next step is, why is that happening? And the why is what's going to allow you to determine what your corrective action is, where maybe you need to do some things differently. It's going to expose and it's going to highlight the things that you need to take action on. So cost management really drives some of that visibility as well. And then the third pillar is integrations. And Bryan did a great job of telling some customer stories there. And I love that because I always like to hear someone's story. My mother was a storyteller, and I love to hear a good story. And the stories that our customers tell are ones that, you know, other organizations love to hear because they can relate to it. So if I tell you a story about healthcare, it's probably not going to have the same level of engagement as someone who has a clinic or has a physician's office, and they're able to tell that story in a little bit grander detail. But the point here is that one of the key tenets of Sage Intacct is integrations. And it's really important for you to walk away with a great feeling about how those integrations work. Integrations 30, 40 years ago, that was kind of an ugly word. Integrations didn't work. Many times they looked like they worked, but then when you integrated the data over, it was messed up, or something was broke. And so people came away with this, oh no, I don't want to do any integrations because that's high risk. One of the things that Sage Intacct does very well is to integrate data from other solutions. The win for you is this: if you're currently using some other applications and they're working and you love them and you want to keep them, then that basically is going to allow you to integrate that over without replacing it. And we've designed Sage Intacct to do those integrations in a very seamless manner. So that's going to allow you to protect the investment that you've already made in those solutions and then integrate them over to Sage Intacct, to our strong financial engine, so that you have the ability to do that visibility through our dashboards and reporting. So you're not going to lose anything. That's the important part. In fact, you're going to gain the ability to have everything in our financial engine. So integrations is that third pillar. Now, as I said, I listen to prospects, I listen to customers, I participate in different events, our customer conference, I do presentations there. So I hear some of the same things over and over. And some of the things that we hear from healthcare organizations that are a real problem is that the data is spread out. It's in these different systems and it's not integrated together. And because it's not integrated together, you may be using something like Excel to push data into an Excel spreadsheet, do some mushing together, and create some pivot tables maybe. That takes time. And the minute that you move that data out, it's really subject to being out of date and perhaps not accurate, because we're all known to maybe fat finger it sometimes and make mistakes. So having too many spreadsheets, having too many people touching those spreadsheets, that also causes us some lag time at the end of the month. There's certain things that we have to do in order to close the month. If we are taking long to get those spreadsheets and to get those journal entries done, that's going to slow the whole process down. That's going to slow us getting that information to our executive staff or our board members. The other piece that we hear is, we've got two sides of the story. We've got the financial side, and then we've got the operational side. And when we have these two different sides of the story, uh, it's kind of double work in a way, because we're having to keep track of all the financial information, and then on another front we're keeping track of all that operational information. We don't have those linked together either. And of course, we probably would not be talking today if you weren't in growth mode. So all of the companies that we're talking to, they want to know, how can we have a solution that's going to grow with us and truly grow with us? One that is going to allow us to scale. Maybe we're 2 facilities today and we want to grow to 10 in the next 2 years. How do we do that? We know we can't survive on Excel spreadsheets and do that. So how are we going to do that? And I think that brings us to our first poll question.
Yes, that's our first poll question. So let me get it going here.
And just a reminder, you do need to answer these poll questions in order to get your CPE credit. So this first one is, how much time does it take you to consolidate information for financial reporting? So you've got some choices here: less than 10, 10 to 20, or more than 20, or you can select number 4, which is embarrassed to say.
If you would be so honest, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It is anonymous, so we won't share the, feel free to be honest. We won't
Yes,
spell anybody out.
we won't see this on YouTube.
No. Right, we'll give it about 10 more seconds, make sure everybody gets an opportunity. All right, 3, 2, 1. Right,
Okay.
let's look at the results.
Wow, this is impressive. This is impressive. So usually Bryan and I bet, we kind of have our pick. I would not have picked less than 10 hours. I probably would have picked 10 to 20.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it depends on how many facilities you have, or how many entities, companies that you are, pulling together. I've known some people that had 10 or 11 instances of QuickBooks, which meant they were having to consolidate all that together, and it could take them upwards of 40 hours. If you don't have very many facilities, I can see where, the time would lessen, but I'm pleasantly surprised that it's less than 10 hours.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So moving forward, let's talk about, what does it look like before Sage Intacct? I always like to say, here's your brain on X and here's your brain on Sage Intacct. So let's talk about your brain on X, whatever you happen to be using today. So before Sage Intacct, you may be tracking all of those entities, and just for terminology, entities is what we refer to as companies. So when you hear me say entity, I'm thinking company, separate tax ID. So just to make clear what an entity is. So one of the things that we did before Sage Intacct is we tracked each one of those entities in a separate system or a separate instance. Because they were in separate instances, we had to log in and log out. For those of you who maybe have had experience with QuickBooks, that's a pain. You're logging in, you're logging out. It's a time hog, and you only can have, so many up and going at the same time before you get a spaghetti bowl and you're totally confused. It takes time to set up a new entity. If you're growing and you're adding entities, maybe 1 or 2 a year, and it takes hours for you to set all that up, again, that's something that, is really a time hog. The duplicate data entry. And when we say duplicate data entry, that can occur in lots of different places. It may occur in some of your master file data, what I call your master file data, like your vendors and your customers, and things that you would set up individually, and you'd have to do that for each one of those entities. In fact, even your chart of accounts. And then, of course, not having that immediate consolidated view. You've got, 10 buckets here, but they don't come together unless you put some work and some elbow grease into consolidating them together. So you've got these entities, they're all their own person, if you will. So that's before Sage Intacct. So what happens after Sage Intacct? Well, first of all, Sage Intacct is a true multi-entity environment. You'll hear me say multi-entity. So again, think multi-company. And also, I would just say that we are literally multi-everything. We're multi-ledger, we're multi-journal, we're multi-currency. But today, as you think about this, just think about these multiple companies. And if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side, you can see that we have 4 entities here. We can have as many entities as we choose to define. The beauty here is that you can add them very quickly, and you also can consolidate them together, either in groups or just putting them together for reporting purposes. So these entities are literally unlimited. When you log in to Sage Intacct, as Bryan said, as long as you have access to the internet, when you log in, you'll log in once, and then based on your permissions, you will be directed into what entities you can transact into. And then once you're in that entity, you'll also be permissioned into what applications, tasks, and activities that you have permission to work in. So as you think about an entity, it is, like I said, its own little person here, and you define how each user can transact in that entity. To create that entity takes less than a minute. So it's not going to take any time at all for you to create a new entity. And the best news about entities, I think, is we're going to automate your inner entity transactions. So today, without that being automated, you're creating journal entries at the end of the month to create those intercompany transactions. We're going to do that automatically for you so that you don't have to do that. We're also going to allow you to share some objects. So remember back to my comment just a minute ago about master files, the vendors, the customers, the chart of accounts. All of that is shared in this multi-entity environment. In fact, if you talk to someone on the Intacct side, we would call it MES, and that stands for multi-entity shared. And that shared means that we're going to share those objects. We're going to share that vendor master. You set it up once, and you can use that vendor across any and all of those entities. That chart of accounts that we're talking about, it's modern. It's not a segmented chart. And it is also shared across all of those entities. That's what provides continuous consolidation for us. We'll see that and talk more about it when we're in product. As far as access, when I come into the product in a few minutes, I'm going to come in as a super user. And usually there are one or more super users within an organization. A super user is someone who basically has permission to go anywhere, so transact in any entity, and can usually go into every application and do whatever they need to there. So having access to that information across those entities is permission based, and it allows you to eliminate that logging in and logging out. Okay. So just another quick view here. I won't invest much time here, but this is just another way for you to kind of see that visual of what that sharing is all about. So we're going to be sharing that chart, and you might have a little bit of angst about that. I'm trusting that once you see it in action, that will go away. The vendors, the customers, the bank accounts, all of that can be shared. And when you think about sharing it, think about the maintenance time that you're going to save. Think about the errors that maybe are going to be prevented. Everybody setting up the same vendor, 15 different ways. That goes away because we just set that vendor up once and we maintain it once. So that's the beauty of having that shared type of an environment. So how do we improve that visibility? One of the things that we talk about in any of our conversations is having such a strong reporting engine. And our reporting engine is strong because of two things. One, because, well, probably three things. I'll start out by saying, first of all, it's in English, and it is a non-programming requirement to design and define a financial statement. In essence, that means that any business user can define a financial statement or financial report. It's that easy. It's all documented. We have walkthroughs that will step you through step-by-step cookbook style on how to create these reports. You won't have any problem doing that, and you won't need much assistance to do that, because we're going to provide you with about 30 reports out of the box immediately when you implement. The LBMC team is going to help you with any of those additional reports and statements that you need. But what makes this powerful as well, besides the ease of use, is the fact that we do dimensional reporting. What does that mean? Dimensional reporting is a way for you to take the data and, for lack of better terms, slice and dice it or filter it to get the level of granularity that you want on the report. So I'll just, give you a quick example. Someone comes to you and says, I need a profit and loss report by entity, by department. Filtering that data by entity and by department is what I'm talking about with this slicing and dicing. Today, it may take you some time to take that information and spin it into that type of format, to filter it out and only select a certain department and a certain entity or company. Within Sage Intacct, it's literally within 30 seconds. I just say, this is how I want to filter it, and click a button and boom, it's there. That dimensional reporting is what really allows you to tell the story of the transactions. So what you're going to see in a few minutes is me taking data and utilizing dimensions to filter it down to create a report that is meaningful to you. Now, these dimensions, we have created 12 predefined dimensions. So the minute you implement, based on your subscriptions, you'll have 12 predefined dimensions. 7 of those everyone has. 5 of those 12 are based on subscription. But at a minimum, you'll have 7 dimensions. Examples of those are location, department, employee, vendor, customer, item, and class. So those dimensions are tagged to the transaction. Those transactions are posted, and that's what gives us that dimensional data that we can then pull into these different reports. You also can create your own dimensions. So if 12 is not enough, you need more, you can create your own. We call them user-defined dimensions. And the dimensions can be used individually, or they can be used collectively when you're doing that reporting. So you might combine dimensions together to get that really granular type of report that you need. This also allows you to be very flexible. And if your business changes or you grow and add some other companies to your organization and you want to do some reporting in a different way, dimensions can help facilitate that as well. All right.
All right, thank you, Linda. We've got time for another poll question now.
Okay.
This will be our second poll.
Poll question number 2. And you might be curious, we ask these poll questions because we really want to know more about you and where you're at, where you're thinking, and so we can gauge maybe a little bit better the audience. So how many facilities are you managing today? 1 to 3, 2 to 10, 11 to 20, or 20 or more? So Bryan, I'm going to say 2 to 10.
Yeah, we'd probably be on the same side of the fence with that one, Linda.
Okay. And just know that when you're thinking about this, LBMC is going to work with you to help with that organizational view, how you want to do those roll-ups, how you want to do that reporting. So, what entity belongs to, what particular roll-up. So they'll be able to help you get all of that put together in your structures.
All right, we'll give it about 3 more seconds in case there's anyone left. 3, 2, 1. Let's share those results.
Oh, so we're kind of even here.
Right in there.
All right. Okay. Well, I wouldn't have guessed that. I would
No.
not have guessed 20 or more to be that high, but
No.
that's a very interesting statistic for us. And you should definitely walk away with several nuggets today that are going to look attractive if you're managing that many facilities. All right.
We'll move on.
So let me talk about consolidations before I open up product, just to give you baseline on how you define consolidation. So if you came to myself or someone on the LBMC team and said, we need to do consolidations, more than likely, we would ask you, help me understand what you mean when you say consolidation. Because there's different ways that we consolidate within Sage Intacct. So the first way, everybody and anybody that's using Sage Intacct has the ability to consolidate data in our core product. Now, that consolidation is based on you don't have any multi-currency in play. We're not going to create any automatic eliminations. We're going to do those due tos and due froms, the inter-entity transactions. However, you would still need to do your elimination entries at the end of the month. We're doing that continuous consolidation because remember, we're all using the same chart of account structure. Now, if you look at domestic does all of that continuous consolidation. However, it creates the automated elimination entries. This is a separate subscription, so it's in addition to core. However, it does do those elimination entries and does not provide for any multi-currency. If you look at global does everything that domestic does, with the addition of being able to do multi-currency. And the multi-currency piece, just so you know, we are subscribing to the exchange rate tables, so you don't have to. We're going to take care of creating that rate to be brought in, and we'll calculate that out to create what we call the Intacct daily rate. When we have that daily rate, we'll post it on the transaction. We'll keep track of it. We do the revaluation reports. You can override that rate if you need to. So we're going to keep track of all of that. We're also going to do that global consolidation. So we'll take all of those different currencies, roll that up and convert it into US dollars. All of that's taken care of, including automating those elimination entries. The last one is advanced ownership. And this is a relatively newer selection from the consolidations menu. And it allows you, if you are one of these organizations that has partial ownership and you need to create what's called ownership financials, this allows you to put the percentages in. So Bryan might own 80% of a facility and I own 20%. And so you need to provide financials for both Bryan and I, and obviously they're different because of our percentages that we own. So advanced ownership takes care of that ownership financial component that some organizations need. So just to recap really quickly, you're all going to have core. You're all going to be able to consolidate. And that's what I'm going to show you today is that core application. Domestic, global, and advanced ownership are separate subscriptions and you can add them at any time. All right. I think it's time for me to turn off my video so that I can reduce my bandwidth a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Nicole, if you could just make sure that you can see, turn that off, that you can see my screen okay.
Yes, ma'am, we got you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me just hit a few high points here before we jump into this beautiful dashboard. Bryan and I both have talked about, oh my gosh, this is so easy to use. So let me just hit a few user experience things that will show you how easy it is to use this. So first of all, I have logged in as Emma. She is my super user. So remember, she's the one that can go anywhere, do anything. I have also logged into one instance of Sage Intacct that has multiple entities in it. And I've used this drop down to show you these are all the entities that I have. You'll see some hospital, clinic, you'll see a surgery center, and then you see some future entities out there. I have also granted Emma permission to transact in all of these entities. So she has permission to do everything. Conversely, I have logged in as Nikki. Nikki's an employee user. And you can see when I go to Nikki's drop down, she can only transact in one entity, ABC Hospital. That's all done with permissioning. You'll also note that there's only a few applications that Nikki can get into as well. And then when she gets into an application, she's also limited. You'll notice this when I go back to Emma, that Nikki is very restricted and streamlined. I only want her to go certain places and do certain things. So let's come back to Emma. And again, ease of use. I always want to know what's the easiest way for me to navigate. So everyone I know is familiar with menu-driven systems where you just select something off of a menu and it takes you right into the software. That's the easiest way for you to navigate. A second way for you to navigate is through what we call the overview maps. These are pictorial icons. You can click on an icon, it'll take you to that place in the software. So that's number 2. A third way you can navigate is by creating a personal menu. We call them the bookmarked menus. So you save a page just like you'd save a favorite. It creates a personal menu. You can change the description. You can move these things around. So it is drag and drop, and I can just create a personal menu. Another way for me to navigate is with our favorites, and you'll see this today. Anything that's gold starred is something I have said, that's one of my favorites. I want to create a favorite menu. And that just gives me a real quick way to navigate through without having to menu travel. So let's come back to dashboards. And we could spend probably 3 days on dashboards. We're not going to spend 3 days. I'm going to share with you 2 or 3 dashboards so you kind of get the idea of that visibility that I talked about. The first dashboard that I'm going to go to is the controller dashboard. And when I put on my controller hat, what's important for me to see? It's important for me to see information about how I'm tracking from a financial perspective. So when I look at my controller dashboard, I'm going to see some quick business insight here. That's what these boxes or cards are at the top of this dashboard. Remember that I am managing multiple entities here. So the minute I open up this dashboard, it is a consolidated view. I don't have to mush anything together. It's already consolidated. This $52,000 worth of general and administrative expenses is across all of those entities. Now, as the controller, I might say, well, I don't want to look at all of those. I just want to look at one of those. So I'm going to narrow this down to just the ABC Hospital entity and apply what we call a dashboard filter. And now what you see is the dashboard has represented itself. It's streamlined it down from 52 to 33,000. And that's what's representative of ABC Hospital's transactions. Now you'll notice up here in the filtering area, I can filter by more than just the entity or location. I can also filter by department or any of those dimensions. In fact, I can filter up to 3 dimensions at one time on this one dashboard, as well as being able to filter by date. So I can't tell you what's going to happen in January of 2019, but I can go back to November of 2018, and I can tell you what November looked like. So those filters are up for you to use on any of the dashboards, and you can determine what filters you want to have on the dashboard when you create it. So coming back to that consolidated view, I'm the controller and I really want to know what is this $52,000. So as I drill into it, I can see the detail coming through for those G&A expenses. And I can quickly see that December office supplies is much more than November. So let's figure out a little bit more information about that. Dropping me into the general ledger report, and I can start to see the transactions that make up that $11,000. Well, gosh, it looks like, just looking at this, maybe I have duplicated an entry here on some office supply expenses for December. So let's take a look at the transaction itself. So as I drill into this transaction, I'm going to get a wealth of information. I'm going to see what the vendor owes me. I'm going to see that this transaction has been posted, but it hasn't been paid. I'm also going to be able to see the attachments. So this is what this invoice is for. It's for those office supplies, but I've got a picture here showing me. I also can see how this was coded. So now I start to see that general ledger that I talked about, where I'm coding it to a specific GL account, which is the base account here, and then I'm tagging it to some of those dimensions. So I've tagged it to a department and a location. The other dimensions that I might want to tag it to are the customer or payer, to the employee that actually made this purchase, and maybe to a specific item. So you can see employee, item, project, warehouse if I'm tracking inventory. Being able to use these dimensions to tell the story of this transaction. As we look at this transaction, we can also see the posting details. So if you were the accounting person, you're going to love this because you don't have to dig in the filing cabinet or go print a report. You can see immediately the posting details, and you can drill into the journal that these were posted into. And then the last tab here is the history tab. And this one, I love this because this tells the history or the story of what happened. So in this particular transaction, there was an approval that was done. And this is going to tell me who did the approval and when they did it, and all the information that I need to know that this was a transaction that went through that approval process. I've got some other dates and some other information here that also outlines the history of this transaction. So remember, I got to this from the dashboard. Here's where I started, and I went all the way down to the lowest level. Now, all of these cards here, these performance cards, they work the same way. You can drill into that information. You can set up the visuals, you can set up the visual indicators, you can compare this to prior periods, prior months, and even to a budget if you chose to. Now, as that financial person, there's a couple things that I want to share on this, excuse me, on this particular dashboard. How important is it for me to manage cost? Oh, it's very important. And how do I do that? Well, one way that I do that is I set up budgets. So here I'm going to look at a profit and loss report that's going to show me actual versus budget. So let's open up that report. And as this report executes, it's also going to give me that same filtering that I saw on the dashboard. I'm going to not choose to filter, but I have the ability to do that if I chose to. I'm just going to run it wide open here. And let's open this up a little bit, make it a little bit bigger so our eyes don't have to squint. And what you're looking at here is a profit and loss report created with a financial report writer, comparing actual to budget, and then showing you that budget percent variance and showing you that highlighted in color. So very quickly, if I want to look at things that are in trouble, I'd probably look at the things that were in red. I want to look at things that are yellow, cautionary, and the green things, I'm doing great there. So if I want to look at this revenue that's coming through private pay because it's red, I can drill into any one of these. I can drill into the budget. I could drill into the actual. I'm going to drill into the actual to see where that $12,000 is coming from. So now again, I'm in the general ledger, only this side, instead of seeing the expense side, the AP side, I'm looking at the AR side. So I'm looking at the billing. Now, stop for a moment because you may have a billing solution that you're using today and you're like, I'm not going to do that in Sage Intacct. Okay, that's perfect. We're going to integrate that over and you're still going to see it here, but we're going to integrate it from your billing system. And then you'll be able to see this information. For me, this came all within Sage Intacct. It did not come via an integration. That's why it says what journal it was posted in. I've got it linked up to departments and locations. And just like I drilled into the AP bill, I can drill into that customer or resident patient invoice. And I can see all the information, how it was coded, and I can see the department and the location that this was tagged to. So again, this gives you that drill down capability. You don't have to go dig in the filing cabinet. You've got it all right here at your fingertips. So let me move this little guy over here and let's come back to our dashboard. And let me just share a couple of other things here just so you kind of get the idea of what a dashboard might look like. So we've got the ability to do grafting. So if you're a visual person, you can see graphs here on the cash balance trend. You might want to split things out across how you are allocating costs. So we've included employee benefits here and how we're spreading that. You may want to utilize some of the other components that we can put on a dashboard, like a checklist. Great to keep you on track, whether it's an end of month process or a daily process. If you are running multiple entities and doing inter-entity transactions, here's a report that's identifying your due tos and your due froms. So if you're paying across those entities or you're entering journal entries across entities, we're going to create those journal entries automatically, and then you can create these due to, due from reports, put them right on your dashboard. In fact, one of the things that we like to do is to utilize this inter-entity reconciliation dashboard for that purpose. So now we're able to create a dashboard and see all of that reconciliation in report format and all in one place. So that's another way that we're using these dashboards. Another way that we're using dashboards is to look at that spend that's occurring. And so what we've done is we've set up a separate dashboard. I like to think of a dashboard as a container. So we have a separate container where we're looking at expenses by location. And remember that I said something about, if you see that one location or one clinic is spending more money than the other. You might want to know why. So each one of these columns represents one of my specific locations. And then within that, again, I've used that color coding, and now I can see how they stack up and compare them to each other. All that same drill down, anything that you see in blue is drill down. So I can drill back to that source transaction. I can do all of this directly from the dashboard because I've got this right in a dashboard at my fingertips. So another way that you might want to see it is you might want to see it based on some operational information. Like you might take operational data out of your EMR system, your scheduling system, your front office system. You might have the number of visits and all of that information that's technically operational. And you may want to say, I want to see that in a visual format. And I want to look at it maybe by month so I can see if there's any trending as to when I have the most patients, when I have the heaviest load of patients. So that type of information can be grafted and it can be put on a dashboard as well. One last dashboard, and that is a dashboard for end of month. Who doesn't want to improve their end of month close time? So I create a dashboard just for end of month. I put reports out there that are important to me. I, put that checklist out there. I can assign people tasks and activities. I can keep track of what's done and what's not done, send them messages and say, hey, when is this going to be completed? So all of that can be right here in a dashboard. That's our visibility. And it's all really driven by that great reporting engine that we have. So let's come back to the controller dashboard and let's just take this report that we looked at earlier, the profit and loss actual versus budget, and let's go into our financial report writer so you can get a sneak peek of what that looks like. Again, as promised, it's all in English. So these are the steps that we'll take to develop or maintain a report. As you create that report, you're going to create the rows that you want on the report or the lines. You'll also create the columns. And so you'll create the columns. Here's our actual, our budget, and our budget percentage variance. Along with that, you may set up some default filters of how you want to use those dimensions to filter the data. You might want to put some notations on this statement. So if you already know that something looks wonky and you want to put a note out there before you send that out to the e-staff, you can put those notations in. You can also set up reports to be permission based. So remember, dashboards can be permissioned, users can be permissioned, and reports can be permissioned. So you lock this down or open it up to whomever needs access. And then the next steps is always something that I think is attractive because we want this to be as fast and efficient as possible for you. So when you finish creating a report, what do you want me to do with it? Do you want me to add it to your favorites menu? Remember, that's the gold star. Do you want me to add it to a dashboard? We saw the dashboards. Or do you want me to add this to the Intacct scheduler? The scheduler is a way for you to take a single report or a group of reports, set them up on a schedule with a start and end date and a frequency and a delivery list. And it's kind of like that set it and forget it guy on late night TV. You just set this up on the scheduler. We take care of executing it and delivering it, and you don't have to worry about it again. So this is a great time saver at end of month, but certainly you can use a scheduler at any time. So this is the financial report writer, one way for you to get that visibility that you're looking for. Now, to finish up today, I do want to cover a business process for you. It takes me about 5 to 6 minutes to do it. The business process that I'm going to do is going to show you several things. First of all, it's the procure to pay business process. So in this process, you really have three applications. You have purchasing, you have inventory, and you also have AP. So think about all the things that you buy, whether it's the office supplies, it's the medical supplies that you use for your different treatments or in your treatment rooms, it's equipment maybe that you're buying. So anything that you're purchasing, you can start that process in the purchasing application, or you could start it in accounts payable. I'm going to choose to start it in purchasing, and I'm going to start it as a requisition. You do not have to start with a requisition. You could start with a purchase order if you chose to. I'm going to show you the complete process that you see here, from requisition all the way to vendor invoice. I'm going to do this a little bit in a role play. I'm going to go over here and pretend that I am Nikki, that employee user that we saw. And Nikki has the ability to create a purchase requisition. Now, for time purposes, I've already created one, but I saved it in draft mode. So let's go ahead and look at that particular requisition. So this requisition is for some medical wipes. This happens to be a non-inventory item, so that means I'm not keeping perpetual inventory on it, but I do want to create a purchase requisition for it. And I've filled out this information. I've now included what item it is, how many I want, and the price that I've been quoted. Now at this point, I can see that this is worth $600, and I want to go ahead and submit this for that approval routing. So I'm going to go ahead and submit it, and submitting it kicks off that routing that's going to take it back to Emma in this case, because Emma is the manager of Nikki. And what I've done on Emma's side is I've created a dashboard for workflow approvals. So in the purchasing area, I'm going to be able to see that I have some things that I need to take action on. So here is that purchase requisition. And if I were Emma, I would want to look at it. So I'm going to see this requisition. I'm going to see exactly what it is that Nikki wants me to order. So I can see everything here, including the picture of those wipes. So I've got that attachment, and I can see how it's been coded and the pricing and so forth. I can also look at the history, and here I can see, is there anybody else that's going to have to approve this besides me? I can have multiple approvers, I can have multiple levels of approvals, and that's all defined by you. But at this point, I'm thinking this looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And once I approve it, Nikki's going to get an email that lets her know that her requisition has been approved. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my purchasing hat, and I'm going to be that purchasing agent that sees that I've got something that needs to move to the next step in the process. So I'm going to take this requisition and I'm going to convert it to a purchase order. And when I convert it to a purchase order, everything comes through automatically. I don't have to rekey anything, including the picture. I'll post that, send it out to my vendor. A few days later, they're going to send me those wipes along with an invoice. So at this point, I'm going to attach that invoice. I'm going to make sure that I got billed correctly, and I'm going to put in a vendor document number, or vendor invoice number, if that's what you refer to it as. And now everything looks good, so I'll go ahead and post that. At this point, I can come back in and I can look at the history of this transaction, and I'll see every step in the process that you and I just created. So those steps in the process are being recorded in this history tab. Here's the requisition, the purchase order, and the vendor invoice, all documented. I can drill into any of these steps, and historically, I have everything that's happened. When this gets paid, I'll also have the payment details. So what better way for you to have information than to have it right here at your fingertips? You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to dig in the filing cabinet, because it's all right here in the system, ready for you to take advantage of. So just to do a quick recap, we saw in that business process We saw purchasing, we saw accounts payable, we touched on inventory, we saw that approval process. That is a defined process ready to go day one when you implement. However, if that's not your process, LBMC will help you create the process that you need to use within your organization. So Nicole, that's what I had to cover today in product. So I'm going to let you take it back and we'll quickly finish up here.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. That was a great walkthrough and definitely some great benefits there for our attendees today. We do have one next poll question here. So this will be our third of today. Let me get that queued up. Just a second.
And while Nicole's getting that queued up, any questions that are posted and we don't get to today, we'll make sure and follow up with you after our session today. Okay, so number 3, which area poses the most significant financial challenge in your healthcare facility management? Controlling cost and expenses, managing capital expenditures and investments, handling reimbursement and insurance complexities, allocating financial resources efficiently. Those are some big topics. So cost and expenses, expenditures and investments, so those capital things, maybe you're buying equipment, maybe you even need to look at fixed assets, which is another opportunity that the LBMC team can help you with. And then certainly any of those integrations.
All right, we'll give it just a few more seconds here.
Okay.
All right, we'll end the poll now and we'll share those results.
Okay, controlling operating costs and expenses. So I would just say there are lots of ways that you can do that within Sage Intacct. It will involve perhaps looking at and changing your process to make sure that, maybe you're taking advantage of those approvals. Maybe you're taking advantage of multi-level approvals. You're looking at better visibility. You're looking at spend analysis by department and holding folks more accountable to sticking to those budgets. So there's lots of ways that software and processes can help you control those costs. All right.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Nicole.
Linda. Thank you, Linda. Now, we have just a few minutes left before we wrap today. We did want to give a couple minutes. Thank you to our partners over at AvidXchange who sponsored today's webinar. And I'd like to introduce Wayne Richards, who's going to talk to us a little bit about some AP automation that AvidXchange can help with healthcare organizations.
Excellent.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Nicole. Can you hear me okay?
We gotcha.
Perfect. Hey, Linda, great session there. That was really cool. Gonna hopefully keep up the energy. So I'm here to talk a little bit about AvidXchange. So thank you all for attending. I think there's some slides to show, but I know we only have a few minutes. So I'm gonna kind of go into some things here. And again, Wayne, I've been with AvidXchange for about 7 years, played a ton of different roles, led some teams. And really, what is AP automation? And when people come to us and they're looking to solve things like they want to simplify an AP process. They want to be able to have a solution that's going to scale with their business. So as they grow, something that's going to be easy to adopt, take on more, could be clinics, could be locations, whatever that might be, but be able to handle it all. And then lastly, they're really looking for greater visibility into the payables process. That could be something of knowing where all of your invoices and payables are at any time, or what is outstanding, what still needs to get approved, get into Sage Intacct or their ERP in order to get in there for month-end close. That's hard to do when you're looking at emails or something sitting on someone's desk. And then finally, there's more control over the AP process, knowing how to approve an invoice, being able to quickly get through all of those approvals so you can get on to more important and maybe more empowering tasks that you have to do and get to, so you don't have to work late, especially at month end and things like that. And the customer I want to share with you all today is Sabin Community Clinic. They're a nonprofit healthcare organization. They've got about 5 locations out in the Los Angeles area, and they provide affordable healthcare to individuals of any income status. So they help the underserved as well as anyone else in that area. And really what they were struggling with is high turnover in that AP position. You know, typically in, when people are getting out of college, they're used to using technology. That's what they used all throughout their college career. They're used to using technology. They want to be able to feel empowered, make these decisions very quickly. But in doing with a paper process and not being able to use technology, the process takes longer. That can result in late payments to vendors, which not only increases the cost, but also frustration among the suppliers that you're working with. Now, as a result of those delays in receiving those invoices, getting them through the system, it affects their pay approvals. They then have to, instead of maybe sending a payment another modality, they have to then maybe reissue payment or send it through a wire just to get payment there on time. So that increased costs. And then they also just needed something in order to have the visibility and control over their entire process, so that these all of these locations know where those invoices are. An invoice comes in a different location, might be able to expense part of it, or should go through those approvals. So all very important in a centralized AP solution. All right, the next, Nicole, I'm not sure if you're sharing a slide. The next slide is really kind of like a detail over what the process looks like. And this kind of pivots into what Linda was showing when she was showing like the payable solution in Intacct. We really kind of mirror that in AvidXchange. And what happens is all of these invoices that come in are going to automatically be routed to the individual that needs to make a decision on that. And that decision could be approving, it could be coding, it could be matching up to purchase orders. So if you're managing some inventory and you have things out there, automatic PO and invoice matching. So it really helps you there. And when we get into those different dimensions that Linda was showing, all of that carries over into AvidXchange. And what's nice, what we hear from some of our users is they like being able to offer the solution to everyone. So you don't need to have everyone in Sage Intacct or their ERP in order to approve an invoice, code an invoice. This is done at anyone at those locations that need to make those decisions. It can be done from a phone, tablet, wherever you are. So hopefully if you get some time off, you can always just pop in, approve a couple of invoices. Once that's an approved invoice, it's going to sync into your Intacct environment and be posted as a bill. So now it's going to live there. We're going to sync in an invoice image. It's fully coded, fully approved, and now part of your ERP. So it's really part of your system of record. It's business as usual there. When it comes to make payment to that supplier for that invoice, we are a payment option in your Sage Intacct instance. And what we do is we take full fiduciary responsibility to make sure payment is executed. So you just tell AvidXchange, here's the payments I want to make. And then we are now sending payment to those suppliers the way that the supplier wants to be paid. So you see to the right here, we offer 2 electronic methods, a virtual card, so kind of like a prepaid MasterCard, a direct deposit that offers enhanced remittance detail so that they can see what invoices that one payment is making payment to, so they apply that correctly. Very important for utility bills. And then we also just send checks. And what we do is we, with that responsibility, is we are following up on those payments. Make sure the vendor received that. Very important in the check cutting age, where at 30 days, we're going to follow up with that supplier and say, did you receive it? Do you need to void and reissue? And make sure that we follow that payment all the way through. And lastly, once that payment is accepted by that supplier, the proof of payment is going to sync back to AvidXchange. So you have that remittance detail, that all of the advice, clear check images, payment acceptance, everything's going to live there. So real important when it comes time for audits or just filing paperwork. You have a digital filing cabinet with an invoice, all of the approvals, the images, and the payment images. A little bit about AvidXchange. We've been around for 24 years, so we're legally able. And this has always been our core competency is AP automation. So we've been doing this a very long time. We've really built out what we call a payment network, which means that in just the last 5 years, we do a rolling average. We have paid 1.2 million suppliers. And why that's important is, should you choose to look at AvidXchange, you're like, well, I don't know if how my vendors want to be paid. We tried doing an ACH program or a virtual card program. That's all on us, and we probably paid 50, 60, 70% of your vendors already. And that 1.2 is always growing. We grow at about 2,000 suppliers, new suppliers that we're paying each and every week. We have a ton of accounting system integrations. I would say that the Sage Intacct is definitely one of our most premier. It's very well integrated. We have an API with Sage Intacct, super slick, which means the implementation and just the data flow goes a lot easier. And then the last point here, we're a pretty large organization. We have 8 offices throughout the US, 1,600 employees, and a third of those are really in the customer support roles, both for our current customers and then also our supplier customers. So super important to make that distinction. And then the last slide here is our 4th poll question. So we'll get that queued up.
Right here for you.
All right. Does your organization suffer from any of these AP processing pain points? Some options here. You can select as many as you like. Breakdowns in the workflow approval, so how these invoices are getting to the appropriate individuals to give their stamp of approval. Manual data entry across multiple systems. Lack of the visibility, so knowing where your payable spend is. A long financial close process. I'd be surprised if anyone doesn't select that one. And then lastly, limited visibility into payment statuses and approvals.
It's great, Wayne. Thank you so much. While we're wrapping up here and giving people just a few more seconds to get their answers in to qualify for CPE, I want to thank all of our presenters today for joining us and sharing such wonderful information. Wayne, thanks you for sharing about AvidXchange, and we can definitely help people connect if there's some information that they'd like more details about. I'm going to give you all about 3 more seconds before we end this poll.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us on.
All right.
And everyone had to prove me wrong. No long financial close process.
That sounds...
You never know.
Never know. Well, everybody, thank you so much for attending today. I know that we ran a little bit over on time, but as always, we're so happy that you've taken the afternoon to spend with us. We don't have much time for Q&A today, but we did get a couple of questions in the chat, so we'll share those out and reach out to you directly to answer those. If you have any questions coming up, please reach out to us at info@lbmctech.com. We do have an exclusive offer for today's attendees for Microsoft Office licensing. We'll include this in an email following up, but you can be eligible for 20% off your Microsoft Office licensing for the remainder of 2024 as a new customer. Again, thank you so much for attending today and for joining us. If you're eligible for CPE, you'll be receiving follow-up email communication regarding your certificate. And please reach out to us for any additional content that you might need. We do have an additional healthcare webinar coming up as part of our healthcare webinar leader series. This will be September's topic, in which we're talking about managing inventory in healthcare. That date is September 12th, and be looking for registration information for that. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Wayne.